Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome to this month's CareFlex webinar. The subject is specialist seating for clients with a learning disability. My name is Les Jones. I'm a business development manager with CareFlex. I'm here with my colleague today,
Rebecca Dunstall.
Rebecca's going to be leading the presentation. Just to give you a little bit of information on the format of the presentation, the first 20-25 minutes or so will be a PowerPoint presentation where Rebecca will be taking us through the basic principles of specialist seating and talking about the provision of seating for clients with a learning disability. The second part of the presentation will be a more of a hands-on session looking at a case study with our new chair, the SmartSeat Pro 2. So if I just leave Rebecca wander off to load up her side of the presentation. A little bit of housekeeping. Videos and mics should be switched off. We are recording the session. They should already be switched off, but if you inadvertently switch your mic or your video on, if you could just switch that off for us, please. We should have enough time at the end of the presentation to take some questions. If you'd like to use the chat feature, my colleague Jess is monitoring the chat feature, so please post any of your questions there. If you have a technical issue, I'm not a technical person myself, but I quite often find that the best way is to leave the meeting and re-enter the meeting. It tends to resolve whatever problems we have. After the presentation, you'll get a package from us which will include a copy of the presentation itself, plus some learning materials as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail as we move through the presentation. So I'm just going to hand you over to Rebecca, and I shall see you in about 20-25 minutes.
Lovely, thank you, Les. So as Les said, what we're going to do is spend some time looking at the theory behind learning disabilities and specifically specialist seating for individuals with a learning disability, and then we'll consolidate that knowledge into a bit of a practical session with Les, and we'll review a case study. Now, at CareFlex, we wanted to join communities throughout the UK for this year's Learning Disability Awareness Week, which is this week, and it's MenCap's annual campaign that strives to ensure that the world hears really what life is like for individuals who have a learning disability. I'm a physiotherapist. I was fortunate enough that I specialised straight away upon graduating into learning disabilities. And I also have a younger sister with profound and multiple learning disabilities. So I've both a professional and a personal investment really in this kind of awareness. So as a company, we wanted to play our part by increasing the knowledge around the importance of specifically postural care for individuals with a learning disability. A learning disability is a reduced intellectual ability and difficulty with everyday tasks, and its generally accepted level is an IQ of 70 or lower. It occurs when a person's brain development is affected, whether that's before they're born, during childbirth, or in early childhood. Internationally, a term we might use interchangeably is intellectual disability. Now, learning disability often gets confused with learning difficulties. And this is essentially when the condition creates an obstacle to a specific form of learning, but doesn't affect the overall IQ, unlike learning disability. A learning disability will affect individuals with how they learn new things in any area of life, and it can take longer for them to learn, and they may need support to develop new skills, to understand complicated information, and to interact with other people. There are actually around 1.5 million people in the UK with a learning disability, and it's thought that up to 350,000 of those have severe learning disabilities. And of course, these figures are increasing due to improved prenatal and postnatal care and increased life expectancy. Some learning disabilities will be diagnosed at birth, but others might not be discovered until the child is old enough to reach developmental milestones such as walking or talking. Those of you who work within LD will no doubt work with specific conditions as well, or diagnoses like Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, and so on. But remember, especially if it's mild, learning disabilities don't always define an individual and may not actually be a barrier to health and care. Therefore, those of you who've joined us today, and if you don't specialise in LD, you will still inevitably come across an individual with learning disability in your clinical practice, and therefore you need to be aware of how best to approach and how best to work with them. There are different types of learning disability which can be classed as mild, moderate, severe or profound, and in any case they are lifelong. A diagnosis of profound and multiple learning disabilities, or PMLD, is used when a person has more than one disability, with the most significant being a learning disability. Many will also have sensory challenges, physical disabilities, complex health needs, or mental health problems. People with severe learning disability, or PMLD, will need more care and support with areas such as mobility, personal care, and communication. It can be difficult to diagnose someone with a mild LD, as they will often interact well with others and be able to cope with most activities of daily living, but just may take longer than usual to learn new skills. Now, did you know that during the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, people with LD were 6 times more likely to die from the virus? A report from the Public Health England found that the death rate for those with the LD was 30 times higher within the 18 to 34 age group. So these health inequalities are so significant that men with learning disabilities die on average 23 years sooner than men in the general population, and within women is 27 years sooner. So this is why awareness weeks, like we have now, are so critical to ensuring that individuals have fair and equal access to services. A learning disability is different for everyone, and lots of people who have an LD can work, they can have relationships, they can live alone and get qualifications. Other people might need more support throughout their whole life. And every person is an individual with their own needs, but with the right support from the right services, they can lead fulfilling lives. The level of support that's needed will, of course, vary from person to person. A person with a mild LD may only need support with filling in a form, for example, or getting a job, whereas someone with severe LD or PMLD may need 24-hour support with every aspect of their life. And this is where we, as health and social care professionals, play a vital role, working together with the individual and with their family, friends and carers to achieve positive outcomes. It's essential that those of us who work with individuals with LD know and follow the principles of the relevant legislation. So in England and Wales, we of course have the Mental Capacity Act. In Scotland, it's the Adult with Incapacity Act. Now, this legislation is critical to protect the welfare of adults who are unable to make decisions for themselves. The law states that people must be supported as much as possible to make their own decision before it's concluded that they lack the capacity to make that decision. And just remember that somebody can still have capacity and make an unwise decision, and that's their right to do that. When it is decided, however, that that person lacks capacity to make a specific decision, because it is based on specific decisions, not as a general rule, then the best interest or guardianship procedures can then come into play. And this is especially important, just referring you back to specialist seating. It's probably a question we get asked a lot, Les, about things like positioning aids, belts and harnesses, and some of the capacity and consent issues that might be around that. We often hear the word restraint being used.
There's a lot of confusion, isn't there, on how to apply these accessories.
Yeah, and it's definitely from our point of view anyway. We need to make sure that we are doing the least restrictive options first. So it might be a case of maybe just using tilt in space or a ramped base before then working our way up to belts or groin harnesses, for example.
We'll try the simplest approach first of all, because you know, if simple works, it's less complex and there's less to go wrong. So.
Yeah, and it's certainly not for the purpose of restraint. Positioning aids are for that purpose, to position someone with stability and with safety within the chair for postural, to manage their postural challenges. So again, if there's any issues around that, then we can support people through that process. If you've got any concerns about positioning aids and belts and harnesses. We've done a webinar recently on the appropriate use of chair functions and accessories. Again, if you need the link for that, then just let us know. Another key part, and I would say that this is probably my take-home slide for working with individuals with an LD, that communication, the need for us to always know the best way to communicate with that individual with an LD. In South Wales anyway, this key information can be found in the communication passport. They might have a traffic light assessment or health action plan. I don't know whether when we have some time at the end in the question and answers, because I know we've got a range of different people from all over, to maybe just give us some hints and tips about what might be available in your area that people can access to understand an individual's communication needs. But we must always adapt our communication style to the individual's level of understanding, their cognition and their method of communication. It's also really important to know when an individual is communicating that they are in pain. I've worked with individuals in LD who laugh when they're in pain. And if I didn't know about their communication style, then I might misunderstand that they're comfortable within that piece of equipment. So it's really important to find out. That might be chatting to their support network or looking in some of their notes to find out how they actually communicate pain. It could be a facial expression, a gesture, body language, or a change in behaviour. Listen to those who know the person well and ask about any changes in their behaviour or interactions. When it comes to communication, we need to be thinking about the use of signs, objects of reference, photographs, communication aids, Makaton. And when we go through the practical bit later on, we can maybe get an idea of how trays can be used to support things like PEC systems, or even environmental controls are being integrated. So we can discuss that if there's any more questions on how to use specialist seating to manage that as well. Now, the Equality Act is a major piece of legislation that made it illegal for people or establishments to discriminate against someone on the grounds of disability, among other protected characteristics. Now, the Act gives additional powers to positively discriminate, and for the purposes of LD, it allows us to invoke the use of reasonable adjustments. Now, these reasonable adjustments are anything that we can do as health and social care professionals to support someone to engage with us, to engage with our interventions. Some of the reasonable adjustments that we can think about doing and planning for, if we know that we have an assessment coming up with a person with an LD, or if you specialise in an LD, you probably do these types of things as a standard protocol. But ensuring we have safe and appropriate accessibility, visiting someone in an environment that they may be more familiar with or comfortable with for that initial contact. If we know we then need to get them into a clinic setting, for example, allowing them to visit prior to their appointment to orientate themselves or to acclimatise to that environment. Of course, allowing the support network where appropriate to attend, providing longer appointment times, ensuring the moving and handling equipment are available, adapting our communication to the level of cognition, allowing more time to process information, and then using simplified information or images or Makaton. Those of you who have been on webinars with us before will have no doubt heard us say the word holistic. It's certainly an approach that defines us at Careflex.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, we need to take in the environment as well as the obvious seat width, seat depth, lateral supports. The environment can be key for us. Yeah. So the English Oxford Dictionary defines holistic in relation to medicine as the treatment of the whole person, which takes into account mental and social factors rather than just the symptoms of a disease. So it's how the individual presents to us, not necessarily the diagnosis. This holistic approach ensures person-centred care, so it doesn't focus on that condition, but also considers the person's well-being as well and daily life for the individual. And as a result of this, we can expect better engagement from individuals because they feel involved in their own care, and in turn leading to better outcomes. It also allows us as well, if we determine that key information, to make sure not only that the prescription is appropriate and fits seamlessly into daily life, but it also ensures continued, correct, safe and consistent compliance with the specialist seating system. So looking at the biopsychosocial model, that helps us to understand a person's medical condition, but then how to, I guess, apply that holistically to their well-being, their quality of life and their health as well. So you've obviously got the physiological pathology, you've got this psycho aspect, so the thoughts, emotions and behaviours. So for someone with LD, it could be fear of certain services, and that's where we need to think of orientation and acclimatisation, thinking about their coping methods and how they manage that, working with individuals with autism, for example. And then we have the social aspect, the environmental, the economical and the cultural factors that we might need to consider as well, and how all that interplays into this sound holistic approach.
I've mentioned the support network quite a bit. We need to make sure that the individuals, where appropriate, have their family, friends, carers involved throughout that assessment, the selection, the issue of equipment, and the review process as well, to ensure that guidelines and care plans are acceptable and appropriate for daily life. If we're working with individuals, especially severe or PMLD, we might heavily rely on the support network to be able to carry out those care plans. And it's one thing that we always press is the importance of that handover, isn't it, Les? And
yeah, it's key. Again, a bit of a cliche. The devil's in the detail, and it's this smallest, seemingly insignificant adjustment on the chair can make the biggest difference for the person sitting in the chair. Yeah.
And again, if you've had a prescription of Careflex seating and you need advice with a handover, then again, please just let us know, because the chair's only as good as how it's used going forward. We can't be there once we've prescribed that piece of equipment. We can't be there then 24 hours a day. It's only as good as how confident people are using it, how competent they are. So, and
again, part of the setup process, which is key, is to give a little bit of guidance and a bit of training on safe and effective use of the chair.
Yeah, definitely. What we're aiming to do is to reduce the dependency and carer effort whilst always maintaining safety. And ultimately, the special seating provision should be compatible with daily life, should integrate well with the environment and all existing equipment. So some of the potential challenges individuals with LD can experience: understanding new or complex information, learning new skills, personal care, eating and drinking, household tasks, managing money, socialising and interacting with others, mobility, and then maintaining optimum posture, which is what we're going to focus on now. Now, posture is directly related to a person's health and well-being. When an individual's ability to achieve good sitting posture is affected, whether that's through illness, injury, disease, or in this case, disability, it can have a significant impact on their quality of life. There are physical, psychological, and emotional effects, as we know, of body shape distortion. And poor postural care can have severe and life-threatening consequences. People with PMLD, for example, often sit and lie in restricted positions, and which can lead to a high risk of postural deterioration. Individuals who are in prolonged abnormal sitting postures or unsupported asymmetrical postures can experience pain, fatigue, dependency, and poor physiological function. Gravity in this effect can also trap individuals in destructive postures, and this usually exaggerates asymmetries and leads to unequal loading on the tissues. And this inability to sit down comfortably can result in them becoming confined to their bed, to the four walls of their bedroom, with limited interaction and engagement, which, as we know, will impact on their well-being. Now, postural care is the holistic use of any technique to minimise postural abnormality and enhance functional movement. And it's an approach that aims to preserve and hopefully even restore body shape for individuals with movement difficulties. But no, the body distortion is not inevitable, and this is key. It's not inevitable. With the right equipment, with the right positioning techniques, we can help to protect body shape. All about identifying risk and being proactive with that postural care, and we'll cover that a bit shortly. I know we're focusing on seating, but I didn't want to skip over the fact that we really have to address 24-hour postural care for anything to be effective. We need to address all the body segments and all the positions that an individual will adopt throughout the day and night. This 24-hour programme means a true holistic approach, and will usually include things like provision of seating, of course, positioning equipment to support them in lying, moving and handling techniques, and advice and training, as Les just mentioned, for the support network across all settings.
And we do have a very interesting former past webinar on the subject of 24-hour postural care, and we can always provide you with a link to that if it's of particular interest. Yeah, that was with Sarah from Simple Stuff Works. So yeah, really interesting one. Now, it's critical that this need for postural care is identified and implemented as early as possible. We have to identify the need in a timely manner before those irreversible body distortion occurs. So we've got to think holistically to identify those at risk of achieving good posture.
Now, three things I would say, 3 tips, and the 3 types of individual we need to think about that could be at risk of postural deterioration are those who are unable to change position themselves, those who are unable to communicate that they need to change position, and those that are unaware or don't have the cognition to understand that they need to change position. So we need to think outside of the box, and we need to be thinking about those types of individuals who might be at risk, and then doing our assessments to see with actually what kind of proactive postural care can we put in place before we see things like contractures and windsweeping develop. There's actually a confidential inquiry into premature deaths of people with LD that established a link between the failure to protect body shape and resultant premature death. And a key issue that was identified in this review that made people particularly vulnerable to premature death was the inattention to predicting potential problems. So a particular area that lacked that forward planning was postural care. So it was recommended that we should be commissioning expert preventative services, including proactive postural care. So these are just really useful bits of publications that can help with funding requests, for example. And it's something we often support people with, is that the funding request and the clinical justifications. We've got lots of stuff already on the website. We've got clinical justifications for each of the chairs, all the case studies, all our webinars with all the reference lists. But if there's any particular issues with funding, then please let us know. We've helped.
Yeah, and you'll have a flavour of what Rebecca's just mentioned in the pack that follows up the presentation.
Okay, so the main question, why is postural care within the learning disability population so important? People with LD, especially PMLD or severe learning disabilities, have greater health needs than the general population. They are more likely to have cardiorespiratory concerns, gastrointestinal reflux, diabetes, or osteoporosis. So postural care that enhances physiological function, encourages normal movement, and reduces the risk of secondary complication is a vital part of their daily life. Individuals can also present with the most complex of postural needs, such as a scoliosis or a windsweeping deformity. We'll be using a lot of terms about postural challenges today. We're not going to be focusing on those because sadly we only get 45 minutes with you.
It's a lot to pack in.
It's a lot to pack in, but on the website there's a breakdown of the most common postural challenges and some of the seating solutions that can help. So please do head over to the info centre if you want to learn more about postural challenges. But it's critical that we consistently support posture throughout the full 24 hours in order ultimately to reduce the risk of those secondary complications, pain, pressure injuries, spinal deformities, joint contractures, and respiratory infections. We also need to maintain good posture at meal times to reduce the risk of aspiration or choking. Now, specialist seating is a fundamental part of this holistic 24-hour postural care approach because it will ultimately improve the individual's quality of life. Specialist seating aims to allow individuals who might otherwise have difficulty to achieve their optimum sitting posture to sit down comfortably, manage energy levels to be able to engage in daily life, reduce the risk of body distortion, enhance physiological function to protect their health, manage pressure injury risk, interact with the environment, participate in activities of daily living. By getting that pelvic stability and that postural control within the chair, we can hopefully release the upper limbs from their load-bearing role so that then they can engage in functional movement. But ultimately, we're here to improve quality of life. Specifically, CareFlex specialist seating, and we'll get a flavour of that now when Les runs through some of the seating solutions in a bit more detail. But high levels of comfort and support can ensure optimum stability and energy conservation. Adjustability in a range of functions and accessories ensures that the provision can be configured to the individual's needs, whilst also being adaptable to the changing needs that can be experienced. And I think this is all part of the holistic approach as well, maybe trying to future-proof equipment as well. And a great thing about specialist seating is being able to have the adjustability to change seat dimensions, for example, or to add accessories retrospectively. And essentially use the seating system base and be able to build around that depending on the needs that come up. The flexibility to adjust both the left and the right sides of the seating system can help with any postural asymmetries that might be present. Water cell technology in conjunction with tilt in space and back angle recline, as long as it's safe and appropriate, can just redistribute weight and manage pressure injury risk. Again, I find it hard not to digress, but tilted space and back angle recline, any kind of function on the chair is not going to be suitable or safe for everyone. We actually done a webinar at the start of the year on the safe use of chair functions and accessories, which goes into a bit more detail. Sometimes prescriptions can be overprescribed, overcomplicated, and might not necessarily be safe for everyone. So just be mindful of things like tilt and space and back angle recline. But when they are appropriate, they can be fantastic bits of kit to be able to help with pressure, injury risk, energy conservation, pelvic stability, and so on. A choice of fabrics and colours can enable individualised prescriptions. And believe it or not, aesthetics and texture can be key to compliance for individuals with LD, especially those with autism, dementia, or behaviours that challenge, or even sensory impairments. I know, Les, you've worked with a lot of individuals.
It can be the kind of the key feature, if you like, for the client isn't so much the postural support from their perspective, as obviously very important, but the colour.
Yeah,
the colour can be just that kind of bridge between acceptance and kind of, you know, not wanting to use a product. So the colour can be an essential consideration, not just a luxury.
Yeah, definitely. And there's certainly, if you working within LD or working with an individual with LD, where the colour or texture is, as Les said, key to compliance, we are able to clinically justify that within our funding request, and to not step away from that, have the confidence to be able to say, no, this is a seated prescription that's needed, because actually there is no point in getting a black chair or a brown chair and spending the money on that if they're actually never going to use it. So it's definitely worth thinking about. Seating systems, of course, we've already mentioned about the support network, have been designed and engineered with those in mind to ensure that consistent, safe and appropriate use. And then we have the service as well. So I think Les will touch on this a bit later, but it's not just about the delivery of the chair.
It's the delivery, the setup is key.
Yeah.
The after sales support and review is key, as well as the client's needs change. Mm-hmm. The chair may need to change, or, you know, accessories may need to be altered as they already are previously set up on the chair. And we're
here to support you through that. Okay, so let's try and relate all this information then to a real life individual. Now, we were extremely grateful to be able to meet with James recently and provide him with the all new SmartSeat Pro 2 that hopefully now you're all aware of for its very first trial. James is a 48-year-old gentleman who enjoys music and film. He has complex disabilities with a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, epilepsy and severe LD. He needs full assistance in all areas of daily living, but he communicates really well through body language and facial expressions and noises. And his support network know him really well, so we're able to help him with that communication. He uses a sling and hoist with full assistance for all transfers. You know, prior to Careflex involvement, James used his previous chair to watch DVDs in the lounge. He enjoyed humming along to his favourite songs in his bedroom and enjoyed socialising with visitors all around the home. His previous seating system was provided many years ago, and sadly his presentation had changed significantly since then. On assessment, we found that he had poor postural control, pelvic instability, scoliosis, hypertonicity, so he had high muscle tone, which had resulted in contractures of the hips and knees, a windsweeping deformity, fatigue, a history of sliding forward within the chair. So there was an element of pressure injury risk there, and swallowing difficulties. So speech and language therapy were involved, and he had an eating and drinking plan in place. Appropriate positioning through effective specialist seating was key for James to manage his health and well-being, particularly to protect his body shape, to reduce fatigue, to encourage interaction and engagement, and promote safe eating and drinking. Another seating objective was the ability to manoeuvre between rooms, because it was really important for him to have that continued enjoyment in activities and socialising around the home. It was also essential that any seating system was robust due to James being very strong. So these are I love before and after videos, and that's a good tip as well with funding requests if you're able to use before and after pictures, because it really does give an objective measure, a visual measure of how important a particular piece of equipment could be for them. So if we just quickly go back to the before, and we can see the change there that's happened. So actually some correction, which is amazing, and then the accommodating then of any resulting postural challenges. So if you can use them to make it relatable and really give a visual of how important that special seating is to clinically justify, and you can work through all those body segments then to see actually how it's targeting James's needs. Before we go on to a bit of a practical with Les, I just wanted to quickly give you some resources that might just help you within your clinical practice. And just remember, even if you don't work with specialised within LD, you are inevitably going to come across with an individual with LD. So to get the best outcome, because that's what we're all here for, thinking about reasonable adjustments and adapting our communication. MenCap have got some really good tools that can give you some ideas on those adjustments for people who come to you for support. And there's also a website, Easy Health, that's got over 390 accessible resources for anyone who finds written information hard to understand. We also have our CareFlex specific resources as well, as mentioned about the website at the info centre. We've got the Encyclopedia of Specialist Seating. We've got the more compact pocketbook of seating that you can take out with you into the field during your assessments. We've got clinical justification documents for all the chairs. So we'll send out some information as well on SmartSeat Pro 2 in the learning pack after this session. We've got case studies, clinical evaluations, pressure mapping, published research. Yeah,
it's a wealth of information that we have available.
Yeah, and you can always contact us as well if there's any anything client specific or anything unique that's not been covered, then you can always contact us. Okay. Let's get Les back up on the screen.
Okay, so we'll take a look at the new SmartSeat Pro 2 chair, which is the chair that we decided on was the best intervention for James. Just firstly, we did consider the Hydra tilt. One of the things we keyed in on initially was this kind of very robust need for the product. He was quite a heavy user of the chair, but it was fairly obvious and fairly early on that James needed a chair of more complexity, which had that robust element built into it. So we'll look at the key features as they apply to James in a second, but I'll just give you a quick overview of the new chair. Just bring the Hydra tilt back. So the SmartSeat Pro 2 is a tilted space chair, ideal for James there with fatigue, helping to manage his fatigue, to tilt the chair back with back angle recline as well. I'll show you how I'm controlling and adjusting some of the movements in a little while. The tilt in space was key for James, but it needed to be used with guidance. So a standard feature on the new chair is,
and my favourite,
Rebecca's favourite, the clinician's favourite, is the inclinometer, or as I like to refer to it, the tilt and space gauge. So this will give you a measure of the exact angle of tilt in space for your client. Now for James, this was critical. He had issues with swallow, so tilt in space was needed to help with fatigue, but we needed to be measuring where we were so that we didn't impede swallowing, and it helped with the swallow.
And I think within LD, especially severe or PMLD, we are going to be working with complex presentations. So the chair has to be able to make it easy for the care plan to be followed. So things like the inclinometer, Les will show you shortly as well about the width indicators. All those little details give objective guidelines to make sure the chair is used, because as Les said, especially with complex presentations, the devil's in the detail. If we are going to prescribe this medical piece of equipment, we have to be as exact as we are with people's medications.
Yeah, it's a class 1 medical device at the end of the day. So if you can just zoom out for me. The other feature, or the general feature of the chair that helped with the assessment process for my colleagues as seating assessors, was the ease of adjustment of the chair. Now, obviously, we took a wealth of information before the assessment and we set the chair up as closely as possible to the anticipated seat width, depth, and lateral support that we thought was most appropriate for James. But there's an element of having to tweak and adjust the chair as James is in the chair to help get a best fit. What we've done with the new chair is to make that adjustment process as easy as possible. This is all tool-free. So what we have as an option on this chair, one of the options, there are various fixing options, a quick release lever. And the quick release lever we just flick up. Once I've flicked that lever into the upright position, I'll show you on the bottom one here as well. The lower one, just so you can see that. You just flick up and flick down to lock. Once I've opened up the locking mechanism, I'll show you from the front, it'll be a little bit more obvious. We have the ability to raise, to twist, to angle. And what was key again for James was the ability to help with that lateral movement to help with scoliosis. So each section of the chair works in a similar way and can be adjusted in a similar way. Also, the wings, again, tool-free, can be just opened up and closed. So it was a fine line with James between providing support and not interfering with kind of peripheral vision. Mm-hmm. So we just needed to finely tune the adjustment of those features. So I'll just turn the chair to the side just again so you can see what I'm doing. I'm loosening off. Gives me the depth adjustment. Also allows me to bring that up. And you can see there the potential height of a client that can be kind of catered for with this chair. Let's bring that back down. And lock that off. So that was key to the success of the assessment process. I'll just look at some other key features for the chair.
Can we just cover the fill-in as well?
Oh yeah, the fill-in, yeah,
please.
Yeah. So we do have
when it comes to postural care, in the simplest of terms, what we're trying to do is fill in the gaps, get as much of the individual in contact with the chair as possible. So the upgrade on this SmartSeat Pro 2 was this modifiable fill-in in each of the sections, not only key for comfort, of course, but actually to be able to bus even the most complex of spinal presentations, really.
So what we have, if you know the existing or the Pro one, it's a flatter profile. On each section, there's a zip along the bottom line. We can lift that up and we can adjust the filling in this little sack of what we call Dacron. So that will fine tune the fitting of the chair, and that can be moved from side to side. We could add additional packs in there, so if we needed to pad the wings out, we could do that as well. And as I said, that's the same on each section of the chair.
So if we do need to accommodate a scoliosis, and we can try and help fill in some of those spaces without needing, this is kind of bridging the gap between someone needing a customised moulded seating. If somebody already has that on their wheelchair, there would be no point in replicating that in specialist seating, because the key part of postural care and pressure injury management is to have regular repositioning. So we want a different, more flexible position within alternative seating compared to their wheelchair.
Pelvic stability, again, key. So seat depth, seat width, on the arm height adjustment built into the chair, which again is tool free. So the arm height adjustment, two little pull levers. You can see that just moving up, down. I get seat width adjustment. You can see here, I think Becca's already mentioned just this color coded gauge here, so that we can make sure when we set the chair up, it's the same on either side. So the seat width range is 35 centimeters to 55 centimeters. I just flick that away and I can just show you the arm height adjustment again.
And if it was to go on the wider setting, there's of course a different size.
We go for a wider cushion.
Wider cushion, yeah.
What was also helpful at the assessment stage was we could remove the arm, not for site transfer, but just for assessment. We could actually have a little look to see what was happening back here to make sure we were getting full contact for James, spreading pressure over a greater area through greater contact area.
Also great going forward as well for sling application removal. I'm sure we've all been there where we get this fantastic position and then we think, oh, we have to get the sling out now. So this is really helpful so you don't disturb the posture too much and the stability, and you can get this sling out with more ease.
I'll just show you the mechanism for adjusting and locking off the arms to seat width. Again, just a quick release lever. So that's in the open position. Once I move the arm back in and adjust it, bring it in, that just locks that off. Now, I don't know if you can see, but we're fixing points here as well for 4-point pelvic straps and chest harnesses. You can see here we've the ability to have different seat to floor heights. So we'd start off at 53 centimeters, 56, 59, and 62 centimeters seat to floor height. So it's again ideal for that taller client. It's back on. Brakes on. Did we not mention the foot plate yet, have we?
No.
Foot support was key, as it is for all of our clients. But James is a very strong, very robust user of the foot plate. On the new SmartSeat Pro 2, we've just changed the design of the foot plate. It mirrors what we have on the Hydro Tilt, which has been very, very successful. So it's an angle adjustable flip up foot plate, which I can extend in length. And as I said, it's angle adjustable as well. We just pop that down, click that away when it's not in use, and just push that back up. Now, there's a lot of detail on the adjustments I'm making here. They are really straightforward. If you need to see exactly what I'm doing, we've got a series of how-to videos. They're online at the moment. So if you go to the info center and look for the how-to videos, you'll see exactly how I'm adjusting all the features on the chair. Channel leg rest, a standard. Negative angle leg rest, a standard as well. And that's a negative angle of 30 degrees there. We didn't see in the picture, but with James, we also decided that a pommel would be a really helpful feature. Now, he was windsweeping and it was a fixed posture as well, but we wanted to prevent further decline. So we added a pommel to the chair. Now with the windsweeping,
I think Les just made a key point there that in most cases, of course, the ultimate goal would be to correct. Sometimes we can't do that, so we need to compromise, but we still have to make sure we accommodate to reduce any further postural deteriorations. That's definitely key, Les.
So ideally, we'd be fitting the pommel center of the chair. But if you think with James's fixed presentation, positioning the pommel in the center of the chair wasn't really going to help. So again, what we could do with this is we can actually offset the position of the pommel, and just by releasing this mechanism, I can push that even further over either side. Now that's all well and good, but I need then to be able to adjust the plane, the angle that the pommel sits at. So again, this can be adjusted so that we can fit it. These are off-the-shelf components of a chair, which we are fitting in a bespoke manner. What we're trying to do is to anticipate as many postural requirements as possible within the chair. Everything you see with us today is standard and off the shelf, but as a manufacturer, we have the ability to custom make bespoke components of a chair called tailored solutions. So as much consideration has been put into the design of the chair to limit the need for a tailored solution, but they still are available as well if we need for that unique component for one of our unique clients.
Put that in the
That's pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah, other than, I don't know if you wanted to cover the water cell
Oh yeah,
technology.
the chair will come as standard with our Careflex water cell technology pressure care. I'll pop the pommel out of the way. I'm just going to remove the cushion from the chair. So, I don't know how well the speaker's working here, but you can hear the water. It's a water-based system. If I sit on the chair to explain to you how that works. There's a four-way stretch breathable fabric on the top, on the cover. That's four-way stretch, yeah, that gives you the benefit, or gives our client the benefit of the pressure care materials that lie below the cover. So we have a memory foam and a high elastic foam, which when they combine are called reflections foam. And what you can see here, the blue cells are water. So what happens is, very simply, as we get a high pressure point, that'll come into contact with the seat surface. The four-way stretch does what it says on the tin.
So if you imagine the ischial tuberosities there going into the bottom of the pelvis, going into the cushion.
You've got some immersion happening. So memory foam reacts to the body heat and contours the body shape. And the water displaces it, moves away from the high pressure point. And as it does that, it lifts the surrounding surface. So very simple but effective. Now we've used the system, been the basis, if you like, of Careflex seating for the last 26, 27 years. It says a lot in itself. But we do have clinical evidence provided for us by Salford University, an independent study into the effectiveness of the cushion as well. And again, if you refer to the information centre on our website, we can give you some more clinical information on that.
Yeah, Medical Devices Agency rated it as appropriate for those at medium to high risk. But with anything with pressure injury management and skin integrity, it's all down to the individual and how well holistically that pressure injury risk is managed. It's not just about the cushion, of course. In some cases, individuals might need a specific, maybe tissue viability, have said that they need to air or a gel cushion. Maybe they do have a specific prescription. So there is the option to integrate that into the seating system. And a key thing is obviously taking our cushion away. Yeah. And then Les can show you.
That was the key thing. I mean, you could use a third-party cushion with our seating. Our water cell cushion, it's part of a system approach, so it's effective. But it's even more effective when we get midline seat depth, seat width, and foot support,
and
stability.
everything.
They all work together as a system approach. So we wouldn't supply this cushion separately for another product, for a Careflex product, yes, but not for if it's a replacement. But not for another company's product.
But if there is a third-party cushion, this thing is such as a nest or a docking cushion, that it will have the cutout to be able to pop in a specific prescribed cushion if that's needed. But again, just to say that whatever cushion or whatever kind of pressure redistribution equipment is in place, it's only as good as how it's used as well.
Yeah. So again, coming back to that handover process.
Yeah, close monitoring, gradual introduction.
Yeah, close monitoring, establishing goals which are realistic.
Yeah.
That handover process, we've talked to carers about the importance of the seat width, the seat depth, and the foot plate, and how it should be used. It's a key component of the provision of the product, is the service that goes with provision of the product.
Yeah.
One other thing I could mention to you as well, you can see that as standard. The chair comes with a built-in lateral here, okay. But we do have additional laterals that give us a greater range of lateral support. So these can be set in different positions on the chair. There are brackets at the rear of the chair, so we could mount here. We could raise that up or down.
And as well, for most complex presentations, if somebody has a fixed scoliosis, for example, and we actually need multi-point lateral support, not just on one side, we actually need to target the apexes of different sides. There's the option to have two on each side as well of the column.
So I was just going to show you, if you know the old or the Mark 1 version of the chair, the new chair has a new shaped lateral as well, and more of an ergonomic design. So that actually helps to grip the client as well, provide that additional level of support. Again, simple principle of pressure care. The more of the person who's in contact with the support surface, the better. And you can see what that does there.
Mm-hmm.
We also have different shape pads as well, called kidney pads. Just a broader pad that again spreads the pressure over a greater area.
I think the only thing we haven't covered is seat depth adjustment.
Seat depth adjustment.
We
All
don't
careful
see it.
experience of seat depth adjustment is standard. Very simply achieved on the Pro 2 as it was on the Pro 1, but it looks slightly different. I put the brakes off. I spin the chair around. The brakes on. So I don't know if you can see here. Yeah, that's great. So we've got a little lever here, which is a spring-loaded lock. You can see I push that down, that releases the lock. Here we go, it springs back up. If I need to increase or decrease the seat depth, I push that lock down. And I push the back away from me. You can see that lock. If I want to increase the seat depth, push the lock down. And again, tool free, very simple to do. While I've got the chair facing you, a couple of key bit of information you'll see on the back of the chair is the serial number. It's a Class 1 medical device. Every chair that we produce for the last 26 or 27 years will have a unique serial number that will give us the exact specification of the chair. Also, as a Class 1 medical device, products that have got to be constructed and designed and manufactured in a certain way, they also need that unique serial number. So that's a very key little information on the back of the chair for you.
While you're there, let's just point out the labels when we talk about the design of having the support network in mind. You'll see the blue labels there for back angle recline and tilt in space. Again, just making sure that all the functions and accessories are used safely and appropriately.
Yeah, the tilt in space can be locked off.
Back angle recline.
Sorry, but I just checked it.
I am listening.
Back angle recline, the lock can be taken off, squeeze the lever, adjust. When I release the lever, you'll hear it click and lock back into place. Tilt in space, just adjust, release wherever is most appropriate. I don't think James needed one, but we could also add a train to the chair.
Especially when we're thinking about communication, as people use PEC systems, communication boards, hobbies, activities, occupations, then actually this could be a key part of making sure that we meet the holistic needs and the well-being as well.
Just clipped on at the front and the back, and these things can be retrospectively fitted. So if it's something that was missed at assessment, we can always add that at a later date, as long as we've got that serial number.
And a good key tip as well, especially where maybe a tray is important. Obviously, when you use tilt in space, the angle changes, but now that there's height adjustment on the arms, which can be different front and back, we can actually angle. So if somebody does need tilt in space for pelvic stability, for example, we can then angle the armrest to make sure that the tray is flat, if that's important. That's a good little tip.
So that's pretty much the chair as supplied to James. I think we've just got enough time for some questions. So Rebecca's going to join me. Jess, if you want to highlight any questions, any key questions or any
Yeah, of course. So one question was, is there anything to fill between the back sections for a long back setting?
What we would normally do would be to perhaps bring one up. Then we'd fill that gap. We just bring the next section up as well, yeah, and so on and so forth. In the extreme, if we've got somebody really tall, perhaps we would consider a fourth or a fifth section in here.
So you can add in another one.
Yeah, but that would be a tailored solution. So I like to think I'm 6 foot, but I'm not really. I'm 5'11". You can imagine the height, how tall a client we could accommodate in this chair. We'd match that then by raising the seat to floor height on the chair as well to give us greater clearance with the foot plate and the leg rest to work.
I think that's the beauty of the tailored solutions. How many is there?
There's thousands of tailored
Yeah.
solutions, yeah. And we learn, you know, we learn on a daily, on a weekly basis. Obviously not so much the height, but perhaps a child height adjustment will be important as growth. But again, it's future-proofing the product. The seat width, the seat depth adjustments will grow or decline and diminish with a client as well. So that's an important consideration as part of the assessment process, that future-proofing.
Any other questions, Jess?
Yes, another question is, some of my service users are in prolonged bilateral hip external rotation. The armrest help-ish, but they don't control the rotation so well. Is there a solution for this with our chairs?
There's lateral blockers, isn't there?
There's lateral
Yeah,
blockers.
that can extend out to try and guard. And I think we've used those as well. So if people have a wind sweeping where the knee is over, just to protect as well. So,
the other thing I've done is a tailored solution. Perhaps if I just move the chair out of the way.
so if you imagine that
You want to extend, you want to extend out here.
somebody was exiting, you're rotating.
So the other thing we've done is a tailored solution, and I'm just going to use the Hydra tool as an example. Is basically make this section longer. I can't do it because I've got these knuckles on here. So we've got that kind of setup. Let's spin that round.
So it's essentially like a lateral blocker, but it's actually
This would be
integrated into
longer,
the
it'd be a
chair.
bespoke component of the chair, so it would give you full length of support along the thigh, I think is what we say now.
Yeah. And as well, because we've got a channel on the leg rest as well, that can help because all the body segments interact with one another. So sometimes by aligning with the lower limbs, and again, tailored solutions. We've done W troughs as well. So if you like the nighttime position in W troughs, if you imagine, that can sometimes help keep the alignment in the lower limbs as well.
And you know, if that's a client of yours in a Careflex chair and the initial setup was, as you see here, and things have changed, you can always retrospectively add new components, new accessories to the chair. Again, I'm a bit of a bore with this, but we just need that serial number off the back of the chair so we can work at the specification, and we can send you some kind of some kind of engineered drawings to show you what we're proposing. Next, Jess.
Lovely. Another question is the leg rest adjustable to shorten the height of the footboard?
Is the leg rest adjustable?
So different lengths, different color lengths.
If I'm getting you right, the first thing we'd consider, if the leg rest is too long, let's say as standard, we've got a 16-inch seat to floor height. If we needed a 14-inch seat to floor height, the easiest option for us then would be to pad the foot plate. We'd actually make the foot plate pad 2 inches short, 2 inches higher to accommodate that 16 inches seat to foot plate height. Yeah. Again, as a tailored solution, we may just be making this section shorter here as well.
And there is a range already built in, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a range that's already built in. But if you need shorter, then as I said, the easiest thing is to build up the foot plate.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously seat height options as well if we need to gain
I think
more room.
if I maybe kind of anticipating here a question as well to lead on from that is that wider statured person, but quite fairly short. We do a product coming out later on in the year, which will look to accommodate that client in particular. So I'm thinking of like a Downs syndrome client with that wide stature, but quite short seat to floor height.
Another question that's come through is it possible to easily disable the angle adjustment on the back of the chair?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. There's a couple of options for us.
Especially on the SmartSeat Pro 2.
Yeah. It's a little bit more difficult for me to show you, but I can explain to you exactly. So back angle recline, lever on the left hand side with the BAR on it, little symbol. So we're going to set that as part of the setup process. Going to lock that off, but we would fear that people may be adjusting that rather than coming back to us to say there's a bit of an issue with the back angle recline. So what we can do to disconnect, very simply, we can just disconnect a cable on the underside of the chair. But what I found is that when we do that, you'll have a phone call within a week to say the chair is broken, because when they go to adjust it, nothing happens. So what we would then recommend is we set the back angle recline. We take this cable off and this lever off. This cap used to be removable, just pull on and off, but we've actually screwed that into place now. So we then screw the cap, take the cap off, put this lever in the spine of the chair, so that in effect, that's all a carer will see is tilting space, which is what we like to call a posture neutral. It doesn't affect the way that the person's posture is supported in the chair.
Doesn't affect those critical angles.
Yeah. I think that's what you meant. I'm hoping it is. Again, if any of these queries we're not answering 100% in the way that you're asking the question, just drop us an email, info@careflex.co.uk, ideally with the serial number of the chair, and we can answer these on an individual one-to-one basis. Back. I should unlock you down. Anything else, Jess?
Yes, another question has come through. Did James have additional back supports under his arms, and can we make divided foot plates in case someone has different foot angles?
So James was just used the built-in lateral supports. We were able, once we had that actual pelvic stability in the hip flexion, that was adequate, to seem to have a positive effect on his tone, and some of his movements as well. So it was just the built-in. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah. Can you ask the question again, Jess?
Yes. Would it be possible to move the camera slightly over so that we can see the SmartSeat Pro 2, please?
Yeah.
And the question was, did James have additional back supports under his arms? And then following from that was, can you make a divided foot plate in case different foot angles?
We have done.
We have done in the past. I can't give you 100% definitive yes on that because it's a brand new chair. We launched last week and we've not yet been asked for a split leg. But on other chairs within the range, we can.
Was it ankle range of movement?
Yes.
Ankle range.
Ankle.
Yeah, so yes, you can just simply do that with a wedge on one side. If there's different ankle ranges.
With a wedge on one side, or we could just put like a double shorter foot plate on the chair, but make two of them. So we can have different angles at different ankle for either ankle.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure if we've answered that. But again, if you'd like to email us, we will answer that for you. Jess, anything else?
I think that's all of our questions. Oh, sorry. The question was actually regarding black supports, not back supports. That was my bad.
Back supports.
Black.
So I'm not, again, who asked that question, Jess?
That's Diana. So she asked, did James have any additional black supports under his arms?
Do you want to unmute?
I think it's just this sling in the image that's making it. I think it's just the sling that maybe she saw in the image. There was nothing additional on there. It was just the built in.
It was. We just brought
We
these.
were able to do it with those built-in laterals.
But if
and the
things were to
wings.
change in time, you can see the way I've just brought that lateral away. We can add that lateral into the chair if needed, if things were to change for James.
I think the after image you might have seen the resolution. It does look like it's a black chair, but it was actually a grey one, wasn't it?
Guessing that.
Yeah.
So if I just bring that down, if I bring that a little bit closer to the screen.
Diana has said that in the photo, it looks like his arms may be resting on supports.
I don't think they were. I
No.
think it's just the deceptive.
Yeah, I think one arm is just resting on his abdomen and the other arm is resting on the arm support. Just double checking, yeah. And the sling is still in situ there on the photo.
I think the sling is sitting on the lateral supports in the picture, which makes it look as though he's in that kind of position where he wasn't. Anybody else? Anything else, Jess?
I think that is all of our questions for today.
I think I can just see something about doorways. This one fits through
A standard
doorways to get
doorway.
into the room. Yeah, obviously the wider we go, they are going to be different, but that's going to be the same with any kind of
Yeah. I mean, if it's
plus size individual.
if it's a delivery question, for example, getting the chair into a house, we can take the arm off either side. And obviously that's going to reduce the overall width of a chair for delivery. You know, part of the assessment process, the environmental assessment would look at doors to make sure we can get access to where we need to get access to, because the thing is, as you make a chair wider, the seat width, we're making the overall width of the chair wider as well.
And you can be expected to be asked that if you do ring into Careflex, then that's what I suggest. We'll be asking you the pre-assessment questions, a lot about the client and about the accessibility and the logistics as well. But certainly this chair fits through the standard doorway to get into this room. Yeah.
I mean, you can't pre-assessment, you can't give us too much information. We will prompt a lot of it, but if there's anything that you think may affect the use of the chair for the client and for the carer and access to a property and moving the chair around the property, let us know up front. Okay, Jess?
Yep, I think that's everything. Thank you very much for the presentation, Les and Becca.
Yeah, well,
Thank you all for joining us.
Well, so we'll bring our presentation to an end. Hopefully we've answered your questions. If there's anything we've missed, please do drop us an email. We will come back to you, either myself or Rebecca, depending on the nature of the query. Thank you for coming along. Thank you to Jess. Thank you to Rebecca.
Thank you to Les.
Thank you. We'll leave you with that just to say you will get a follow-up package of information, which will include a copy of Rebecca's presentation as well, plus some other little bits and pieces. But if there's anything we can help you with, please do get in touch, info@Careflex, or visit the website. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.